Greetings everyone, welcome to Music is a Journey. I'm Peter. This video is the second video in a series I'm doing on shoegaze music in Japan. In the first video, I looked at the history of the music scene going back to the early 1990s, talked about which bands were the first bands to play in a shoegaze style or at least incorporate elements of shoegaze music in their music. We looked at what happened in the early 2000s with the kind of birth of the scene really happening in Japan and then reaching a kind of first wave peak there around the mid-2000s to late 2000s. And then in the 2010s, there was a wavering point where some bands fell and some bands rose. And then finally, in the last few years, the scene has been really hot. So in this second video here, I'm going to go over 14 of the albums by 14 different artists that I picked up in the last few months. And I'm going to give a brief review about each of them and then also play a very short sample of some of the music from each of the albums. I found that I can get away with about 6 seconds of music, which actually is not very much, but just to give you a brief taste. So I will put in such a short clip for each of the albums. In the third video, I want to talk about some of the difficulties that I had buying CDs or even finding CDs in the shoegaze scene in Japan. Also, how I searched for them. What are some of the albums I was not able to get that I really would like to get? And I also want to talk about my 5 favorite songs. When I do that, I will talk about those artists more. So for now, let's take a look at the ones that I did not mention in the first video and that I will not mention in the third video. Here we go. The first album is Cattle. That's the name of the group, and the album is Somehow Hear Songs. It's like Cattle, Somehow Hear Songs. So how did I find out about this one? Well, this appeared on a couple of lists on Rate Your Music when I was looking at lists of Japanese shoegaze albums. This album, I guess you could say it is very much a Loveless Worship type album. They really go for that, what standard shoegaze type of music style, that big wall of sound guitar where it's more like the humming of 10,000 bees in a wind tunnel rather than, actual clearly played chords on the guitar. They also have the glide guitar, that kind of waving guitar sound in there. And of course, the soft vocals, in this case, soft female vocals. The lyrics are sung either entirely or almost entirely in English, and they're rather simple lyrics. But with this soft, pleasant female vocals and the wall of sound guitar, I think it's an excellent example of what I expected shoegaze music to sound like. So the track that I want to pick from here is a track called Blue Star. So let's just listen to 6 seconds from Blue Star from Cattle's Somehow Hear Songs. Next up, this is a group called burrrn. That's burrrn with 3 R's, just like the heavy metal magazine. And this album is called Blaze Down His Way Like the Space Show. What a great album title that is, huh? So this one is an album that frequently appears on lists of albums you've got to hear, or, top 10 or top whatever lists of Japanese shoegaze. And originally I was not able to find a copy of this. There's another album of theirs that was available, but I really wanted to get this one. As it so happened, a few days back, I was actually checking out another band on Amazon. And as I was scrolling down, this one showed up and there were only 2 copies left, available for a very reasonable price and at a discount. So yeah, I had to buy it. Similar to Cattle, we have the really typical Loveless shoegaze sound on here. That, again, that wall of sound distortion that sounds like it's made by a jet turbine engine. But there are some different layers and textures in here, perhaps a little more varied than the Cattle album, though the Cattle album is excellent. This one here actually has some tracks that are really loud and noisy and have a bit of edginess to them. There is one track on here, I think it's the one I Don't Want to Think. It actually starts off with a really rousing drum beat that reminds me a lot of Mick Tucker, who was the drummer for Sweet, that 1970s hard rock, glam rock band. So that's a really exciting beginning. You know what? I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Instead of playing one sample from this one, let's just hear the beginning of how this song starts here when the drums kick in. Yeah, so some of the tracks on this album are a little bit more slower and gentle and not so loud, whereas others, the volume is way up. The drums, the volume on the drum recording is way up, and it sounds almost like the snare drum. It sounds like a barrel of oil being hit rather than a snare drum. And even the vocals get drowned out. You can barely hear them in the background, but somehow it just feels like that's what they wanted, and they were successful in carrying it out. Other songs are a little bit easier to listen to. The guitars are not that loud, and you can hear the vocals a little more clearly. As well, some of the tracks, there's some pretty smooth drumming going on. I think I said previously about the drummer on at least one of the albums of Luminous Orange that he had a very psychedelic drumming style. And there's one track on here where I feel the drummer is doing the same. A couple of the tracks are also instrumentals, but yeah, if you are looking for, again, that heavy, almost aggressive in places version of My Bloody Valentine's Love List, this is a great album to hear for that. So that's burrrn, blaze down his way like the space show. And let's listen to another little clip from this album. The next album to talk about, this is Our Great Escape by a band called Juvenile. I found this also on a Rate Your Music list, and I checked it out. And, you know, a lot of times I just give a cursory listen on YouTube. For me, a cursory listen means play the first track, skip ahead a little bit. How does it sound? Skip ahead a little bit. How does it sound? Fine, go to another track. Do the same thing for 3 or 4 tracks. And if I feel there's a consistency to it and that I like what I'm hearing, I will see if I can get a hold of it. I actually do not listen to the album all the way through. So this one here, what there is to say about it is not really shoegaze, you know, with the noisy guitars. I think there are 3 tracks on here that actually feature distorted guitars. The rest of the time, the guitars are clean. The lead vocals is male, and they are sung in a very high, soft, whispered voice. It reminds me of one of the singers from Flipper's Guitar, only singing in a more whispered way. It's not really a vocal style I'm particularly keen on, at least not from male singers, but that's what it is anyway. There are some very beautiful clean guitar melodies in almost all of the songs, and a couple of tracks feature female backing vocals or support vocals. Let's see, there's something inside here. Yeah, here's a picture of a lovely young lady at the beach with cool looking hair. Yeah, so it's a pretty decent album. It's not what I was looking for exactly, and I think the main problem I have with it is that the production is a little dense. So when you have the lots of reverb going on and reverb on the vocals and the reverb on the guitars and everything, it does get a little bit ringy in my ears because I'm listening with in-ear earphones. It might sound better on a good CD player system, I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm not disappointed I got it. There are some great tracks on here, some beautiful melodies, and let's give just a brief listen to one of them. Let's hear something from a song called Memories. So that was Juvenile, and next up, this is one called Uchuu Nekoko, which has been translated to English in different ways using universe, because Uchu can mean universe or space. I prefer saying it as space, because if you read it like that, then it is Space Cat Child, which I think sounds pretty decent, you know, for coolness. Space Cat Child. You could also read it as, well, okay, so a kitten in Japanese is koneko, which means like child cat. This is nekoko, which is cat child. So a little bit different. Space Cat Child, Uchuu Nekoko. They have some, I think they have 2 or 3 albums out. This is their most recent one. Oh, I have to read this here. Hi no ataru basho ni kite yo. That's it. Hi no ataru basho ni kite yo. Come to the place where the sun is shining. Like that. Yeah, and they had a previous album whose title I have now forgotten. Here's an image of the album artwork anyway. Just a minute, I'm going to look it up. It's called Kimi no yo ni ikeretara, which means something like if I could live like you. That album is the one that often shows up on lists when they're mentioning shoegaze albums in Japan. The English article on Wikipedia says that this album was praised for its similarity, or it sounds similar to Loveless. I haven't actually heard it, but this album here was the one that was available on Amazon, and that's the one I got. As far as my reckoning goes, this doesn't really lean heavily into the shoegaze. Perhaps it is more dream pop. I'm not an expert on this. I'm still just figuring all this stuff out here from the beginning. But we do not have the wall of sound guitars, although we do still have that dreamy, surreal music atmosphere and the very soft vocals. So yeah, if you're looking for that, you know, wall of sound guitars, that's not what's happening on here. This is more like perhaps your teenage girl easy listening shoegaze light type of thing. Anyway, it's very pleasant, and there are some nice songs on here. I would like to hear the other album, though, in a little bit more detail before I make any decisions about buying it, if I can find it. So anyway, that's Uchuu Nekoko. And one thing I guess you could say is that the duo never actually show their faces. They always represent themselves as two, like, manga type characters. Here's an image of that. And from this album, I just like to feature the final track, Hikage. There are only 7 tracks on this album, by the way, so I guess it's a mini album. So let's listen to a short clip from Hikage. The next album is called Sparkle, and it's by a group called MASH. And this goes back to the 2000s, 2004, I think it says on the back here. There's also a little picture on the Obi strip of 3 other albums. So I'm guessing they released about 4 albums at least anyway. When I first heard this album, it was a few weeks back, and it was almost a month ago. I was taking a walk between work sites. I had time, and I was taking a walk through the countryside, looking at fields and rivers and going through a bamboo forest. And I was listening to this and thinking, this is such a really cool album, but not a lot of it is exactly shoegaze. In fact, they rarely go into the layers of distortion and guitar effects. I feel the sound is more like a post-rock album. The distortion never gets to outrageous levels, or I shouldn't say never, probably it does in a couple of tracks. It's actually been a while since I've listened to it. I'm going to consult my notes here. So I realized, okay, I said it doesn't rely so much on layers of guitar effects and distortions. It's a little bit more of a cleaner sound, still a bit of, edginess or scratchiness to it. There are some distorted guitar moments or effects, but I feel this album is more about establishing, I guess more of like a post-rock feel atmosphere to it. This one actually has 3 tracks that are a bit long. One is over 8 minutes, one is over 9, and one is over 10 minutes long. And these longer tracks, they take you, they establish a kind of like a musical theme, and then they'll change it partway through. There's one track on here. It's called Rise, which I think is one of the ones that really grabbed me, because it starts off going in one direction, and then after a couple of minutes, it changes to this really groovy 70s-like bass riff and continues in another direction. Some of the tracks have a little bit more of an aggressive touch to them. Some of them have a little bit more spacey feel to them. It's just a good variety. Like, no tracks sound exactly the same as other tracks. And the final track, actually called Happy People, is a really kind of dark feeling to it, and maybe the heaviest track on the album. Anyway, I think this is a really delightful surprise, because I was buying all these albums looking for something similar to that My Bloody Valentine sound, or maybe like Slowdive sound, and I was getting quite a variety of stuff. And then I got this, which was just not what I was expecting or looking for, but I really liked it. So I don't know, what did I say I was going to play from MASH? Yeah, so there's a track on here called 7 Years, and I selected that one to play a sample from. So let's just hear about 6 seconds from 7 Years from MASH's album Sparkle. Next up is a band called My Lucky Day, and this was just from a list on Rate Your Music. I think it was the list with 171 albums, and I was just scrolling through, looking at album covers, looking at band names. If something caught my attention, I tried to find it on YouTube, listened to it. If it sounded good, then I wanted to see if it was available, and yeah, My Lucky Day was available. I forget where I bought it now. I have several sources. But anyway, this is my impression was, so I haven't really talked about For Tracy Hyde yet. I think I did a little bit in the previous video. Tracy Hyde have some songs that really have a lot of guitar distortion and are very cheerful, fun, feel-good types of songs sung with a very young-sounding female voice. Normally, I'm not all that interested in hearing songs like that. There's something about them that puts me off a bit, but these, like, you know, shoegaze or dream pop bands, I'm happy to listen to them. I guess it's because, you know, with guitar distortion, it just makes everything better. Anyway, if I were to say, like, pick my favorite For Tracy Hyde songs and ask a band to make an album similar to those, that's what this album here sounds like. What's this album called anyway? All Shimmer in a Day. All Shimmer in a Day by My Lucky Day. Yeah, so just an album of, what is it, 8 or 9 tracks here? Maybe it's 8 tracks. An album of 8 tracks of noisy guitar, lots of distortion with beautiful vocal melodies and really feel-good, fun music. Let's give a listen. Let's give a listen to the opening track, which is called March. And I'm not sure if that means the month of March or the Mickey Mouse March or anything like that. But anyway, let's hear a bit from March by My Lucky Day. This is a band called Shelling and their album Waiting for Mint Shower. Yes, great title there. So Shelling, again, this was, I think it was on that list of 171 shoegaze albums from Japan. Again, I think I like these really soft color album covers for Japanese shoegaze bands. It usually tells me it's going to have a dreamy feel to it. Shelling, my impression of this album is 2 words: softness amplified. There is distorted guitar on here, but it's more in the back, and it's just like this warm, fuzzy, staticky layer that is just carrying the album. There's plenty of keyboard on here, but it's also creating this warm, fuzzy layer effect. You have, again, that very youthful, young-sounding female voice, very sweet and charming and innocent, naive almost feel to it. Like if you know, you're a junior high school or high school boy and you're in love for the first time, and the biggest thrill you've had so far is being able to, like, sit next to her and your shoulders touched or something like that. That kind of wonderful, early, lovey romance feeling. I don't know, that's just the impression I'm getting. I don't know if that's what they're actually singing about. I haven't bothered to check it in detail, although there is a song where she keeps talking about kiss in different ways, like this kind of kiss or something kiss. Like, didn't pay attention all that much. But anyway, that's what we're talking about here. Softness amplified by Shelling. Sorry, that's my impression of the music. The album is Waiting for Mint Shower. Yeah, and let's see here. For this one, I am picking the track Recollection of July. So let's listen to a little bit of that one then, by Shelling. So here I'd like to put a plug in for Holiday Records. I'm not sure if this is actually a label or a distribution center or something. They are on Holiday Bass, and I've also seen some bands, for example, Plant Cell are on bass and Plastic Girl in Closet on bass. So I don't know if bass is like the main site and then different bands or distributors have a page on there. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but anyway, Holiday Records, they have loads of stuff, not just shoegaze, but loads and loads of bands, a lot of indie bands or whatever alternative type bands. There's lots of stuff. I checked the shoegaze stuff, of course, and there are many different groups. EPs, lots of EPs out there. A lot of bands that I was looking for in other places and couldn't find their stuff. It's on Holiday Records on bass. Unfortunately, a lot of these albums are sold out. There were some I thought, oh, great, I can finally get it from here. The price is reasonable. And then go to the site and it says sold out. So let's see what I actually did get. Oh, by the way, when I ordered stuff from Holiday Records, the guy one of the guys, I don't know, sent me a handwritten note saying, you like Japanese shoegaze, that's really great. Here are some bands I recommend. So anyway, first of all, we have one called Morita, Saki in the Pool. So just to explain, Saki is a girl's name, Morita is a family name, and in case you didn't know, this part of the world, we put family names first, given names second. So Morita, Saki, that would be Saki Morita to the Western folks out there. Morita, Saki in the Pool. I don't know who Morita Saki is. I haven't bothered to look it up yet. She might be a band member. She might be someone the band knows. She might be an Olympic swimmer. She might be an Olympic swimmer for all I know. But I thought the name sounded really intriguing, so I checked out their music for a bit. The EP I wanted to get sold out. So I got this one instead. This is called Icebox, and it is just a 4-track EP. And what I've noticed is a lot of these shoegaze bands, they actually don't have a proper envelope or CD case. It is just some paper, like, folded into 6 CD-sized panels that it folds together and the CD drops in. I'm keeping these sealed as much as possible because I take them out, put them in the computer, and that's it. Anyway, what do Morita, Saki in the Pool sound like? They are a very soft, gentle band, male, female vocals singing very softly, as is kind of the thing to do with shoegaze. And they do have some background guitar distortion supporting the song, but I feel that is not the main feature. It is more this just soft kind of guitar pop atmosphere, dream guitar pop atmosphere. The clean guitar melodies are very important. The vocal melodies are very important in their music. 4 tracks, all of them pretty much soft and nice. There's nothing really powerful or aggressive, but very pleasing and certainly worthwhile getting at least this one here. So that is Morita, Saki in the Pool, and I am choosing a track called 4 Jewels and playing just a little quick short 6-second sample from that one. Next up from Holiday Records, this is a band called Relapse, that's spelled R-E:\lapse. And this is exactly as I was saying. This is actually just a sheet of paper printed and then folded into 6 panels that fold together, and then you shove the CD in between the papers in here. And in fact, this little like CD plastic sleeve bag thingy they gave me, it barely fits in here. Like it's almost wrinkled a little bit trying to fit this one in here. It was really hard to get it out and very hard to put it back in again. So Relapse, they have 4 tracks. One is called lowercase f, just a lowercase f, that's it. Little Little, Smile, and Neverland. And all of these tracks are really pleasant. Similar to Morita, Saki in the Pool, we have male-female vocals. The tracks are all slow, very relaxed and sweet and easy to listen to. Just Relapse have more emphasis on that fuzzy, distorted, staticky guitar background sound. It was really in the background for Morita, Saki in the Pool. Relapse, it's more in the front. But again, this is basically like listening to somebody's Sunday afternoon daydream with a sensitive microphone and then the volume cranked up. So yeah, that is Relapse, and I think this is just simply called Relapse EP. All right, so yeah, let's listen to a little bit to the track called Little Little. One more from Holiday Records. This is Moon in June. I heard about their name and I saw that there was an album available on their site. An EP mini album. We've got, 6 tracks on here. Could be an EP, could be a mini album. I don't know what the deciding factor is. But this is Moon in June, and this one really surprised me. The reason why is because I feel a lot of the songs sound like they are inspired by songs from the past, maybe particularly 70s pop in Japan. And it's not because it sounds exactly like 70s pop in Japan. We have, again, fuzzy guitar. I don't remember if there were keyboards on here or not. Clean guitar, soft female vocals like the others, except this music feels a little more lively. The previous two albums I talked about, it's all really soft and dreamy. These have a more lively feel to it. And again, more of a lively pop factor. So there's some, it sounds like the opening sounds like a revisiting, a 1970s revisit to 50s rock and roll, but in a lighter, more like pop-friendly atmosphere, and then with the guitar distortion and the soft female vocals. There were other songs on here too. I just felt like there was a hint of that inspiration maybe from 1970s Japanese pop. I'm not sure, just I'm hearing that. And that was refreshing because I haven't heard anybody else doing that yet. Now, they do actually have a full-length album available on Amazon. I gave a few cursory listens to it on YouTube. It did not strike me the same way as this one did. But then again, maybe it's because I've actually heard this all the way through a few times that I have such a warm impression of it. So maybe I need to give that album a little more of a chance first before I decide to buy it or not. But anyway, Moon in June, and the song that I picked from Moon in June, actually I've moved on to the second sheet of my note paper now. This is called Summer Pop 97. So yeah, let's listen to a short clip from Summer Pop 97 by Moon in June from the Evergreen EP, which I failed to mention, or mini album. Yeah. So here's an album I was at risk of talking a lot about, and at first not in a favorable way. So this is a band called Spool. This is their third album. It's called Image 4, in parentheses, Drawing on Canvas. Now, Spool's debut album is indeed a shoegaze album. This is an all-female band, and you can check out their album. It's got this blue-green cover with, it looks like the four women's faces are maybe looking into water, or you're seeing them, you looking out of water. I'm not sure. That album does really have that, you know, really hefty, warm, fuzzy, distorted guitar feel to it. This, their third album, they have gone into more of just a female rock band direction. There is only one track on here where the guitar distortion starts to heat up and there's more of an effect to it that could be considered in shoegaze realm. Otherwise, the rest of this is quite clearly a rock album. It opens, the opening track is an instrumental, and it's pretty upbeat. It sounds pretty good. It's not wild and crazy or anything like that, but it's a pretty decent intro to the album. The first few songs, actually, there's good variety. One of them is a little bit more attitude-driven track, and one of them is a little more laid back with the fuzzy guitar, and one of them is a little more epic feeling. My impression from the first few tracks was that, okay, it's not shoegaze, but this is a pretty solid band. However, you know how it is. I don't know if you know how it is, but you could get a bunch of good stuff that you're not really familiar with. You recognize it's good, but if there's one thing in there that you don't like, you might walk away with the impression that, well, it had that. And the thing that actually got me from this was I wasn't so keen on the lead singer's vocals. Especially at the end of this album, there are 3 tracks. When I heard them for the first time, I was literally like going, ooh, ugh, oh. And I felt like, that's it, I gotta skip this track. I cannot listen to this. Well, thankfully they were just demos, but boy oh boy, did we really need to have them on the album? So my impression then was that the singer is not very good at all, and the first couple of times I listened to the album all the way through, I noticed when she tried to slide her voice up and didn't quite hit the note at the same time as the rest of the instruments, and I felt, she sings a little bit flat, she sings off key. And there's also a couple of songs where she tries to put some attitude into her voice, but her voice is just too relaxed to really bring it across convincingly. Like one song, she starts off singing, jikan ga nai ze, which means like, jikan ga nai ze, it's like, we don't have time. It's like, hey, we don't have time. We haven't got the time. You know, and she sounds like she's lying back on a couch with a bag of chips going, you know, jikan ga nai ze. Like, well, why don't you move your ass then? So I had this impression of her as not being a very good singer. And I listened to this album for the 4th time through just to really clarify what my thoughts were going to be. And then I found more and more of the songs were actually quite appealing. And I started to be able to feel like, well, okay, her singing is not very strong sometimes, and sometimes it actually is. And yeah, we don't really need that attitude sound in a couple of the songs because it doesn't come off very well, but the band is doing really well. And in most cases, she's doing all right. A couple of songs she actually does quite nicely. When she sings in a little bit higher tone and has a little more energy in her voice, she sounds fine. And then there are a couple of songs where a second obviously female vocalist is contributing, and they sound really nice. So after a while, like after the fourth listen, I wanted to listen to this album a fifth time. Like I was really starting to enjoy it now. So the track I want to play from here is a track called Light of the Sun, which actually I think is, for my preference, is the best song on the album, and it sounds really good. So here we go, Spool, Light of the Sun, from their third album, Image 4, Drawing on Canvas. Just 3 more albums to go. Thanks if you've stuck with me so far. So this is an album called Green. It's by a band called Ray, that is capital R-A-Y, and this is an all-female band. Pink, their first album, is the one that shows up on a lot of lists. I kind of suspect that a lot of these lists of shoegaze bands in Japan just put on the debut album on the list, because some of the other albums are actually even better than the debut, but those are less commonly mentioned. Anyway, Pink is their album that is mentioned the most, and I was not able to find it anywhere. But I did find a seller on Yahoo Auction, buy now option, selling Green. So here it is. So I did check it out on YouTube. I just quickly listened to the first 3 tracks, sounded like what I was looking for, and yes, we get that wall of fuzz, guitar distortion sound. It's an all-female band, so we've got at least 2 lead female vocalists, great melodies, harmonies, wonderful stuff. The third track, Gravity, actually even has some nice chord changes that give an extra feeling of just changes the mood in the song in a cool way. But the album after this starts to get a little bit spotty. We get a song that is kind of quasi-pop, and then we get one that is just like, where did you leave your guitars, girls? It's all like synthesizer and programming and like, what the fudge? And then there's a track on here called Skyline, where it's just this gentle electric piano, some background synthesizer. Later on, there's a bit of guitar, and it's 2, possibly 3 women, like just talking at the end of the day. At the end, they're saying goodnight to each other in one part, and they're just talking about like their concerns about what like life and happiness, and what can we do to improve our lives to make ourselves happier and at the same time make life happier for the people around us, or some kind of really positive messages like that. I haven't paid very close attention to it. It's all in Japanese too, by the way, so even if I do pay close attention to it, I might not catch everything. Anyway, that's what it is, and it just feels to me like it is some late teens or early 20s young ladies who are doing a little enactment of a conversation in order to send a positive message to the younger women below them in their mid-teens or whatever. That's what it sounds like. The album after that does kind of weave in and out. Like some songs are more, we get the fuzzy guitar back again, sometimes less so, sometimes more of a pop feeling again. I think if it were up to me, I would pick out 7 or 8 songs, make it a mini album, and it would be brilliant. Unfortunately, what do we have on here anyway? We have this like 14, 15, 16 tracks on here. The very last one is actually just acoustic guitar and harmonica. Yes, we have harmonica playing on a Japanese all-female shoegaze band album. Same actually here with Spool. There's also a track on here featuring a bit of harmonica. Anyway, one of the songs on here, Rusty Days, we have our fuzzy guitar again. We've got a very cheerful keyboard melody and just a really upbeat song with very catchy chorus. I hate to admit it, but it might just be my favorite track on the album, for heaven's sake. So yeah, that's Ray, and I'm not disappointed in getting this. I mean, I can obviously skip the poppy type songs, which are not really to my liking, but on the other hand, I think I've lived in Japan long enough that actually hearing pop done by a band like this is preferable to hearing pop done by all these boy and girl bands where they just do a lot of dancing and wear cool costumes. So I did a quick check anyway about Ray. It turns out they are considered an idol group. And I guess as an idol group, they probably wear costumes. And I guess maybe you could think about them as the shoegaze version of baby metal. There is a Wikipedia J-pop fan page. I forget what it's called now, but Ray are on there, and it lists 5 or 6 different styles they are said to play, including shoegaze and J-pop and some other ones. But one of them was quite surprising, and I forget what it was now, but it was a rather heavy style of music. Not deathcore, but anyway, it was something quite heavy and surprising, so not sure. But anyway, that is Ray. I would like to play a sample from the song Gravity, actually. So let's hear a brief clip from that one. Lucy's Drive. We actually mentioned them in the first video, or I did. You listened, I said it. Back in 1992, they released an EP with a couple of really good songs with lots of guitar distortion and guitar effects, and one track called No Rain, which is a great example of early 90s shoegaze. So the main dude behind it, what was his name now? Yuichi Nakamura, I think it was. He later on joined a band called Zeppet Store, and from 2007 he started up Lucy's Drive again as a solo project. They have released, I think, 2 albums and 2 mini albums. Could be wrong about that. They have an album from around 2017, 2018 with a blue cover. I'll show it here. That sounds like a really good shoegaze album. In the brief listen I gave it to, it also shows up on some lists on Rate Your Music. But they also did a pair of albums called Pair of Sounds. This is Pair of Sounds Red, and there's a Pair of Sounds Blue. Pair of Sounds Red is available for very cheap. Pair of Sounds Blue, good luck finding it. If you do find it, it's probably not very cheap. Anyway, I bought it because it was cheap. And the opening track called Feel the Light, it does have that glide guitar and sounds like, okay, this is, I'm going to call this adult contemporary shoegaze. It means it is not particularly loud, it is not particularly youthful, it sounds very mature. And actually, some of the tracks on this album don't include the guitar, don't really sound like shoegaze albums, but they still have that gentle texture to them, which is important, I think, in a lot of the songs we're talking about here. So there's 2 or 3 songs on here that do feature the distorted guitar, but it is not really in your face. It's more tempered and held back, you know, for an older, more mature audience. This is a pretty good album, but I wonder if the blue one is better, because that's just the harder one to get a hold of. If I can find it, I might want to get a hold of it. Anyway, that is Lucy's Drive. We've made it to the last album, and I have to confess, this is not really a shoegaze band, but in their more recent albums from, say, anyway, 2016, mid-2000s, and even their latest one, they do have a shoegaze guitar sound style, but in more of a regular alternative rock song format context. I'm talking about Zeppet Store. So this is their album Reverb. I love that cover, and this album I think is just so good. Never mind shoegaze. If you are my age, probably a guy, possibly a woman too, and you just like really good alternative rock with a heavy guitar sound, good distortion, slight hint of what? There's almost a progressive feeling in a couple of tracks on here. I mean, there was one track, can't see it, text is too small. There's one track on here that is really quite a surprise because they just delivered 4 really solid rockers, and then they give us one that sounds like it's from some modern day European prog rock band. In fact, this one here and the other album I have, there were quite a few times they remind me of modern day Spock's Beard without the hefty prog, you know, musical exercises, the musical gymnastics that prog bands often do. It's like they've skipped that part, but they're still giving us just a really good rock guitar sound. And the vocals also have similar sound to, what's his name? Ted somebody. Ted singing on Spock's Beard, Enchant, whatever. Reminds me of him sometimes. Reminds me also of a European singer with an accent sometimes. But this album here is just really good. So if nothing else, you might want to check out Zeppet Store's Reverb. Now, the interesting thing about Zeppet Store is that they are celebrating their 35th anniversary this year. And on March 25th this year, they released their 35th anniversary album called 35. I listened to it on YouTube and I thought, that sounds great. I gotta get a hold of this. And nope. it's not available. Surprisingly too, I mean, we're talking about a band that is fairly known. I've seen their name come up a number of times. They're releasing their 35th anniversary album and it's just not out there. It seems that from their website, they sold a CD in a bundle with a t-shirt and a tote bag and I don't know, maybe a hoodie, and they were going for 8,000 or 9,000 yen, but that's all sold out and that's it. I don't know if you have to go to a concert to get an album, but that's just really crazy because it sounded great. Like, I like this Reverb album, and if it's as good as that one, it's going to be a great album. Okay, that is my walkthrough of, I think it was 14 albums by 14 different artists, generally in the shoegaze realm in Japan. So in the third video, I'm going to talk about some of the difficulties I've had in tracking down albums, looking for albums, determining which albums to get, how I looked for albums, and as well albums I couldn't get that I really wanted to get, and finally, my 5 favorite songs. Probably a list that's about to change, but I'm going to stick with these 5 and I'm going to talk about those. There are actually 3 albums that I really want to spotlight, and I'm going to make a separate video for those. So that actually will probably follow this one. In a couple of days, few days. I'm going to do a kind of part B or an appendix to this video here where I'm going to spotlight 3 albums that I got recently that I really, really like. Hopefully you'll watch out for that. Thanks for sticking through this long video. I'm going to stop talking now. See you in the next one, folks. Take care. Bye.